الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. One of the important things, and the entire deen is important of course, but something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever it's mentioned in the Quran, it's mentioned after the command to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, which is birrul walidain. The goodness and the righteousness and the rights of the parents. And especially in these days, when someone is seeking the blessings and the mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these last 10 days of Ramadan, and seeking Laylat al-Qadr, and for the sins to be forgiven, and for the rewards to be given, something very interesting that some of the ulama, they would mention this specifically. Part of receiving rewards from Allah in these blessed days is that the person take care of the problems or the issues or the debt on him. Like if you want to travel, if you want to go for Hajj for example, you need to take care of your debt first. When you give your zakah, you have to take care of your debt. When you're seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are debts that needs to be taken care of, and one of which is to the parents. And the rights of the parents to be observed at all times, but to always remember that this is one of the means, one of the important means to receive the blessings in the days of Ramadan and the rewards, and for the dua to be accepted. Just the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, and this is a sound hadith in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and others, he said, رضا الرب في رضا الوالدين وسخط الرب في سخط الوالدين. The rida, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure in the pleasure of the parents. That means if the parents are not pleased, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pleased with that individual. وَسَخَطُ الرَّبِّ, and the wrath of Allah is in the wrath of the parents, or the anger of the parents, which is the opposite of al-rida. So that by itself, if someone is seeking the pleasure of Allah, if the parents are not pleased, that means a person, he needs to do something about it. That blocks, prevents the person from receiving the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many, as we know, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and ayat of the Quran. When we read the Quran and we see the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed upon you that you worship none but Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Immediately right after that, and with al-walidain ihsana, and the way it's even mentioned is with a noun. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ, and walidain mentioned first, not وَأَحْسِنُوا لِلْوَالِدَيْنِ, not be kind to your parents. And that's why no matter how much you translate the verses, you would never fulfill the rights of the ayat, because the feeling and the effect of it in the art is completely different in the original language. So وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ, and with the walidain, with the two parents, with the father and the mother, ihsana. Ihsana is a noun. That means you fulfill the meaning of al-ihsan and goodness in all what it means. Not one action, or not what you think is ihsan. Because what we think is ihsan is one thing, but what al-ihsan is something else, not necessarily what we think. And sometimes you have new generations, they think of the ihsan to their parents is to put them in nursing homes, for example. They're doing so much ihsan to them. This is a relative matter? No. It's something that is to be, or to fulfill the perfect meaning of al-ihsan to one's best ability. And we follow the Prophet ﷺ and the companions radiallahu anhum. And there are amazing stories, very strange when people read the examples of the early generations of Islam with their parents. Something that is not present on this face of earth, which shows how they understood and applied the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is meant to be brief, but it's just a reminder. But it's a huge subject that requires for us, as every subject in the deen, we have to go to the nusus. We go to the text, the wahy, instead of all of this just talk. But when you go to the wahy, you would find the Quran, ayat of the Quran, and see and have patience in having the tafsir of these ayat. What does it mean? What the ulama of the tafsir, they said about it. Sahaba radiallahu anhum, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, tabi'een, a'imma of this deen. ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, so many ahadith. The Prophet ﷺ, that means he sat with his companions radiallahu anhum, mentioned al-walidain in many ahadith, many statements of the Prophet ﷺ, actions done by the Sahaba, and asking the Prophet ﷺ about certain situations with their parents. All of that is ilm that is required for a person to learn. And many of us, we just have some general idea of what bir al-walidain is. And sometimes even with the way that questions are asked, a person might not be aware of this, but it shows not understanding what it means to have kindness to the parents. When someone, for example, says that even in a context of the father or the mother are doing a sin, so what should I do? As if he's upset with that. He should blame himself first, right? Of course, he has to have the concern and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them and advise them and things like this. But sometimes the way the question is, because as human beings, why there is a command from Allah, commands from Allah to have righteousness towards the parents. If you see the awamir, the commands in the Quran, that means have the certainty that your nafs will have some resistance. Because the awamir, takalif al-shar'iyya, the commands from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the religious commands, is required for a person to strive and struggle and have to have patience. It's not that the command, some of the commands are from the mubahat, for example. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا. Eat and drink. MashaAllah, we like to eat and drink. So this is not a command that is obligatory or a person get rewards. This is from the mubahat, from the permissible things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to eat from the tayyibat. But whenever there's a command and like this, like establish the salah, you have to have patience to establish the salah. It's not going to be something that is from the first instant fits the desires. If the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a person to be kind to his parents, yeah, you love your parents, mashallah, and you care for them, but it requires sacrifice. It requires for the person to seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. And the rights does not end by their death. The rights ends by your life, by your death. When a person departs from his life, in this life, this is where he ends, or the rights of the parents ends with regards to him. Because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that there is birr continuously to be done after they pass away by the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, as it's mentioned in the Quran, وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. That a person, the believers would say that, my Lord, have mercy upon them as they raised me when I was young. And to be kind to their friends, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ shows this, the relative silat al-arham, the friends of the parents, after they die, part of the birr, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ مِنْ أَبَرِّ الْبِرِّ أَنْ يَصِلَ الرَّجُلُ أَهْلَ وُدِّ أَبِيهِ بَعْدَ أَنْ يُوَلِّي. From the great acts of righteousness, أَبَرِّ الْبِرِّ, is that the person is connecting and having the good relationships with the friends of his parents after they pass away. After they pass away. So to keep these types of things, إِنْفَاذُ عَدِهِمَا, to fulfill their promises, or their promises, or if something in their will that or even not recorded in their will, as long as it's something that is feasible and it's not haram and things like this. And with all of this righteousness, if a person obeys his parents and follow what they want in matters of sins, he's doing uquq to them. He's not fulfilling the rights. This is someone that hates his parents, if he knows what he's doing. Why? Because he put bad deeds in their account if he listens to them in disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then it becomes difficult for someone that wants to be righteous to his parents, because as mentioned before, you do not obey them in the sin, but then you see that this is a test from Allah. The parents are going to be upset now. What do I do? Even though it's not a justified upsetness, because لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق, no obedience to any makhluk in disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But just the fact that they will be upset even though it's not justified, this is such an emergency situation here. So what that person should do, he has to be extreme and show extreme ihsan to them, not in sinful way, in good ways, so that would offset their upsetness, even though they're upset because he did not commit a sin. So because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the one that commanded us to have kindness to the parents. Very briefly, and I'm just mentioning this so that we can, inshallah ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, we need to read what the treasures of what the ulama mentioned. Again, with regards to the nusus, one of which is in the tafsir, Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, he mentioned certain things with regards to birr al-walidain. I'll just mention them as points. The first one is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered for people to worship Him and the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He made birr al-walidain associated with that as the ayat and as we know. And also He made the shukr of Allah, part of it is to be grateful to the parents. Anishkur li wa li walidayk. It's amazing ayat. Anishkur li wa li walidayk. That you, from the advice of Luqman to his son, and that's Kalamullah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning this, that you be grateful to me, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to your parents, and to your parents. And what's mentioned here did not say righteous parents, parents that are kind to you. No, just as what's the sifa here mentioned? Sifatul walidiyya. The characteristics of being a parent, that's enough. So that's why whether they are believers or disbelievers, whether they raised you or not, doesn't matter. As long as they are the walidin. So that means to be kind to them. And as mentioned here in the ayat, so that means it's part of the foundations of the deen. Of course, which is a very obvious thing, that a person does not curse them or say anything bad about them or be a reason that they become or they cursed, as long as he does not have a mean to it. As the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that if a person أن يسب الرجل فيسب الرجل أباه ويسب أمه, that a person would curse his parents. How? By cursing someone else, saying something, words of cursing and things like this to someone with regards to the father and the mother, so the person would retaliate. So he ended up having his parents being cursed. He's the one that was the reason for it. So he cursed his parents by such an action. Of course, uquq al-walidain, and the uquq, which is the opposite of al-birr, the slightest amount of it is major sin. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Uff, which is just the slightest gesture that a person is uncomfortable, doesn't like what they're saying. Just the face changes when the parents are speaking to their son or to their daughter. This is from the uquq if it makes them not comfortable. This is both parents. He mentioned on the third point, that, or the fourth point, both parents, they have equal rights, even though when the mother is given more. This is in only when there is either or. Either the mother or the father, then to choose the mother, but then without upsetting the father. You figure it out. A person has to find something or a way to it. And as also the issue of where you figure things out, as when someone asked Imam Ahmad rahimahullah that his mother is asking him to divorce his wife. So he said to him, giving the answer, لا تطلق زوجك, do not divorce your wife, ولا تعصي أمك, and do not disobey your mother. That's a perfect answer. What he's going to do. A person then will say, so that, what do I do? This is sufficient answer. Do not divorce your wife, because if the mother wants the son to divorce his wife because she's a very evil woman, it's a different situation. She is not to be divorced, but do not disobey your mother. That means you have to do whatever it takes so that she does not feel that she's been disobeyed, which with matters of al-ihsan. And he mentioned that they don't have to be Muslims. It doesn't matter, because again in the ayah, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَى أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. If they strive and struggle with you so that you commit shirk, the worst thing ever, do not obey them, and still وَصَاحِبْهُمَا. And al-suhba is the companionship. And again, it's not acts of righteousness here and there. The companionship, that means you are with them. If a person is able not to leave his parents whatsoever, especially for those who leave their parents and they live far distance, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for each and every one. But if a person wants the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to have the companionship, not to leave them. And we know the story of Uwais al-Qarni. He missed the level of being a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, which is a level that none of the ummah afterwards, if all together with their righteousness and goodness cannot even come equal to the fact that one Sahabi saw the Prophet ﷺ, believed in him, and this is by itself a level that no one can come near to. And he did not do this. He did not come to the Prophet ﷺ, it was said, because he was taking care of his mother. And the hadith in Sahih Muslim with regards to Uwais al-Qarni and the Prophet ﷺ saying to the Sahaba to ask him to make dua because his dua is accepted, and so on. So when it comes to al-jihad fi sabilillah, unless it's a mandatory one and the ruler, he would issue the command for everyone. If it's not, it happens after the permission of the parents. As we said, the would and to have the kindness to the friends of the parents. And he mentioned that even the issue which is a khuluq, manners in the Muslims, which is to be faithful. He mentioned the incident of the Prophet ﷺ being kind to the friends of Khadija, radiallahu anha, his wife, after she passed away. And he would, ﷺ, slaughter goat or sheep and distribute the meat for the friends of Khadija, his wife. And this is such a great quality in the believers. And he says, فَمَا ظَنُّكَ بِالْوَالِدَيْنِ, if that's the wife. So what do you think then about the parents and how a person will be kind to them? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically mentioned when they're old in age. Because why? Because they need more attention, more help, and more likely they won't ask. So that means it's not, since they're not asking, that means they're happy. And ihsan al-walidain, the kindness to the parents, it doesn't have to be that, are you pleased, are you happy? Yes. Because if they don't say that, usually they would say they're pleased and happy. It doesn't happen this way. You have to do actions. Of course, without bothering them. But this is also a detailed subject here. The least of a tabarrum, which is as mentioned as to be kind to them, to be generous with them, to be lenient with them. And to, as he says, أن يتلطف معهما بقول لين لطيف كريم وأن يجعل نفسه مع أبويه في خير ذلة في أقواله وسكناته ونظره ولا يحد إليهما بصره فإن تلك نظرة الغاضب وهذا من بر الوالدين. من بر الوالدين is that he's kind to them when he speaks to them, generous. His way of conducting himself with the parents, humbling himself in his speech, in whenever he's silent, in the way that he looks. لا يحد إليهما بصره. He does not stare at them, looking at them like he's angry or anything like this. Even the looks, to observe that. And from the birr is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for mercy upon them, as the ayah mentioned, and to have the dua, and to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them in their life and after they pass away. And to remember these things, especially if they took care of the child, at least with whatever means, to remember these things so that the dua becomes even more and more sincere. So this is some, and there are so many. And the ayah talks about this. So this is not a conditioned birr or kindness or righteousness, but it's something that comes from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make a condition for it. And you see from all of that how the tawheed of Allah is something that is no like of it either. Because لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There's no obedience for no one whatsoever in the disobedience of Allah. And this is part of fulfillment of the tawheed, for the person to observe the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rights of others. And there are so many things to be mentioned in this subject, but we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for each and every one of us to be kind to our parents, whether they're alive or dead, and to have mercy upon them. And wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.